The bride looked me dead in the eye and said, "Excuse me, the staff entrance is in the back." That bride was my daughter. I'm Margaret Hale, 62 years old, and I was standing in the marble foyer of the Copley Country Club Boston's shrine to old money holding a wedding gift wrapped in blue floral paper from the clearance rack at Target. My daughter, my own flesh and blood, looked straight through me like I was invisible. For a moment, the entire room went silent. Waiters paused with trays of champagne. Guests turned curious to see who the woman in the cheap navy dress was. Then the whispers began soft and poisonous. I could almost hear them thinking, "Who let the help wander in here? I didn't cause a scene. That's never been my way. 40 years of working double shifts teach you to swallow humiliation without letting it show." So I smiled small polite and said I must have made a mistake. Then I turned toward the door as if I had somewhere else to be. But inside something cracked, wide open. It wasn't my heart. That had been slowly breaking for years. It was the last thread of denial snapping clean in half. Because if I stayed quiet now, I wouldn't just lose my daughter. I'd erase myself from her story completely. I could still hear her laughter, fake and delicate, echoing through that grand ballroom. The Whitmore's friends, polished, perfumed, and perfectly cruel, were already moving on, sipping vintage champagne that cost more than my monthly mort. And me, I stood there gripping my purse like it was a lifeline, wondering how love could turn into this cold, glittering thing that made you feel small. That moment didn't appear out of nowhere. It had roots, deep creeping roots that started 18 months earlier, the first time Clara brought Bradley Whitmore home. The perfect gentleman, she'd called him. Handsome in a magazine way, straight teeth, perfect posture, the kind of smile that felt rehearsed. I remember wiping my hands on my apron and telling myself to breathe, to be proud. My little girl had found someone who treated her well, or so I thought. But that dinner would be the first time I saw the light start to fade in her eyes when she looked at me. The warmth in her voice cooled, replaced by something cautious, calculated. She was already learning to speak his language, the dialect of people who measure worth in stock portfolios and summer homes. I didn't know it yet, standing in my tiny kitchen with a pot roast in the oven and my best china laid out on the table. But that night was the beginning of the end, the moment my daughter started slipping away one perfectly polite smile at a time. Bradley showed up at my doorstep with a Wall Street smile, firm handshake, perfect suit hair, so neat it looked airbrushed. He called my pot roast authentic. Back then, I thought he was being kind. I even thanked him. Only later did I realize authentic was just a polite way of saying poor. That night, I caught my daughter studying me as if I were part of some experiment, measuring every word, every gesture, making sure nothing about me embarrassed her new boyfriend. She laughed too loudly at his jokes and apologized when he wrinkled his nose at my chipped dinner plates. 2 weeks later, the Whitmores invited me to dinner at their home. Though calling that marble and glass palace a home felt like calling the ocean a puddle. Their dining table alone could have fit my whole kitchen inside it. Patricia Whitmore greeted me in a string of pearls the size of grapes, smiling like she'd just smelled something unpleasant. "Names carry weight, don't they?" she said, tilting her head. "Yours sounds quaint, like I was a curiosity from another century." I spent most of that evening trying to make myself smaller. Every time I opened my mouth, someone interrupted with a story about ski trips in the Alps or charity galas for underprivileged youth, spoken in that tone rich people use when they want credit for noticing poverty exists. When I got home, I scrubbed the smell of their perfume off my hands. It wasn't just that I didn't belong, it was the realization that my daughter wanted me not to. Months passed, and Clara's voice changed too, the warmth that used to melt me gone. She spoke in that crisp, neutral tone I'd heard at the Whitmore's table, the kind of tone that makes emotion sound inconvenient. Then came the call. "Mom, about the guest list." I knew before she finished. A mother knows. We need to make a few adjustments. Bradley's family has certain expectations. Very formal, very traditional. Traditional? Another word that means you don't fit. How many guests are we talking about removing Clara Paws? I could hear the chatter of expensive voices behind her wine glasses clinking a piano somewhere. We've reserved 3 seats for your side. You, Aunt Lorraine, and maybe Mrs. Phelps, since she helped raise me. 3 seats. 29 years of scraped-together birthdays of rent payments made late, so ballet lessons could be paid on time, condensed into 3 seats at the back of a ballroom. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Because the older you get, the more you learn that silence can say louder things than words ever could. That night, I sat alone at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd taught Clara multiplication and heartbreak. I opened our photo albums, her toothless smile on the first day of school, her twirling in a thrift store prom dress I'd altered by hand, her arms slung around my shoulders at graduation. Each picture felt like a language I used to speak fluently, one I could no longer remember. I traced her face with my finger and whispered, "How did love turn into something I have to prove?" Outside, the streetlight flickered. Inside, I finally understood some goodbyes don't come with words. They come with invitations that never arrive. The morning of the wedding, Boston wore its usual disguise, gray skies, a drizzle fine enough to ruin hair but not plans. The kind of rain that makes flowers droop and the poor shiver. I ironed my navy dress one last time, the nicest thing I owned. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean-pressed and chosen with care. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman who had done her best with what she had for as long as she could. But to the people waiting inside that marble country club, I wasn't the mother of the bride. I was staff. The lobby smelled like lilies and money. A quartet played something slow and elegant as guests in designer gowns floated past their diamonds, catching the light. I heard one woman whisper, "Such an interesting mix of guests." The way she said interesting made it sound like a disease. Then all at once she appeared. Clara. Descending the grand staircase in white silk and pearls, she looked so breathtaking it hurt to breathe. For half a second, I saw my little girl again, the one who used to curl up beside me on stormy nights, whispering, "Don't let go, Mom." But when her eyes met mine, they didn't stop. No flicker of warmth, no hint of recognition, just a polite emptiness. And I realized she'd practiced this. My daughter had rehearsed how not to see me. They seated me at the back of the ballroom behind a palm tree so tall it might have been planted specifically to block my view. My table mates were the florist's assistant, a tired photographer's intern, 2 elderly cousins who looked as confused as I felt, and a woman whose date had disappeared to network, the reject table. I smiled through it all the way women do when they've learned that crying only ruins your mascara, not your situation. Halfway through the reception, I excused myself to find the restroom. That's when it happened. A door down the hallway, just barely ajar, led into the event office. I might have walked right past if I hadn't heard the voices. The SEC's still investigating, a man said, sharp and low. We can't risk having anyone with the wrong background sniffing around. Bradley. And then another voice, his father's calm, measured, used to giving orders. Dorothy. Margaret is harmless. She won't ask questions. My blood ran cold. Harmless. That's what predators call the person they think won't bite. I edged closer, my heart pounding. "We just need to keep her out of the picture until the audits are over," Bradley said. No connections, no paper trail. A chair, scraped papers, rustled. Through the gap, I saw the desk files spread open, forms I knew all too well. My professional brain switched on automatically. Insurance claims, property damage, fire, flood, accidental loss, each filed weeks apart, all under different subsidiaries, but the same handwriting. Bradley's. And each claim, by some coincidence, lined up perfectly with his debts. They weren't just rich, they were dirty rich. For 20 years, I'd worked as an insurance adjuster. I'd built cases against people who thought they could cheat the system and get away with it. Sitting there, my daughter's new husband was exactly the kind of man I'd spent my career catching. I lifted my phone hand steady despite the storm inside me and snapped photo after photo, dates, signatures, totals, company names, evidence. When I straightened up, I wasn't shaking anymore. Let them call me harmless. Let them call me staff. They had no idea who they'd just seated at the back of the room. They thought I was harmless. A tired mother in a discount dress, a relic too polite to notice what was right under her nose. But when you've spent 30 years combing through fraudulent claims, you learn to smell dirty money even when it's wearing Chanel. By the time dinner plates were cleared and the string quartet began, the slow melody for the cake, Cutting My Mind, was set. My heart was racing, but not from fear. It was from something sharper clarity. I walked to the stage where the band was packing up between songs and handed the band leader my ID. I'm Margaret Hale, the bride's mother. I'd like to make a short announcement after the cake. He hesitated for a moment, glancing toward the wedding planner, but something in my tone must have told him I wasn't asking for permission. He nodded. Minutes later, Clara and Bradley were at the center of the ballroom, all spotlight and sparkle. The crowd circled them like planets orbiting the sun. Cameras flashed. Champagne flutes clinked. It was the picture of perfection right until I took the microphone. The sound system let out a faint hum as I spoke. Good evening. I began steady and clear. I'm Margaret Hale, mother of the bride, and I have something important to share with you tonight. The entire room froze. You could feel the air tighten. Clara's head snapped toward me, her face bleaching to the same shade as her gown. Bradley went rigid. Across the room, his father's expression shifted from irritation to panic. I raised my phone so everyone could see the glowing screen. Over the past year, I said there have been multiple insurance claims filed under the name Bradley Whitmore Fires, Floods, Accidents, all happening just before major loan payments were due. Convenient timing, convenient disasters, and a very inconvenient witness. Me. The murmurs began small at first, then rising like a tide. I've worked in insurance investigation for 20 years. I continued my voice, calm but cold. I know fraud when I see it, and tonight I've seen plenty. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Patricia Whitmore's wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered against the marble. Harrison's jaw locked so tight you could almost hear his teeth grind. Then silence. A silence so deep it felt like the whole building was holding its breath. And just as I took one step back, the ballroom doors burst open. Federal Bureau of Investigation agents poured in badges, flashing voices commanding. The chandeliers caught the silver glint of handcuffs as they surrounded the head table. Harrison Whitmore, you're under arrest for insurance fraud and money laundering. The words echoed through the room, bouncing off marble and crystal, turning a dream wedding into a crime scene. Reporters would later call it the Boston wedding sting. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking about headlines. I was looking at my daughter standing in the middle of it, all shaking mascara, streaking her cheeks, realizing the life she'd chosen had just crumbled around her. I walked toward her, slowly ignoring the chaos, the shouts, the flashbulbs, the whispers. I reached out, placed a hand over hers, and said softly, "When you're ready to come home to people who love you, I'll be waiting." Then I set down the microphone, lifted my purse, and walked out through the same doors where she'd once told me, "The staff entrance is in the back." 3 days later, I heard a soft knock at my door. No photographers, no pearls, no glittering chandeliers, just Clara, my daughter, standing on my porch in jeans and a wrinkled blouse mascara washed away by tears. When I opened the door, she looked smaller somehow, as if the weight of pretending had finally caved in on her. "Mom," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "I'm sorry." I thought fitting in meant erasing where I came from. Her words broke something inside me, not my heart, but the wall I'd built to keep from feeling the loss of her. For a moment, we just stood there, two women who had both paid too much for pride. I didn't scold her. I didn't say I told you so. I simply pulled her into my arms. Because sometimes forgiveness isn't a reward for the other person, it's medicine for yourself. We sat at the kitchen table where I used to help her with spelling homework and patch up scraped knees. The same table she'd abandoned for marble ones and expensive dinners. Now she traced the old coffee rings on its surface with her finger and whispered, "How do you even look people in the eye after something like this?" I told her, You don't worry about people. You look yourself in the eye first. Once you can do that again, the rest follows. Outside, the news was still buzzing with headlines. Society wedding turns FBI raid. But inside, it was quiet, just a mother and daughter learning how to speak again. Later, when I recorded this story for Real Her Stories, I said, we can raise our children, but we can't choose who teaches them what worth means. The best we can do is show them that integrity outlasts money every single time, because truth, no matter how painful, always ages better than lies. As the video ended, I looked straight into the camera, into the faces of every woman who's ever been dismissed or replaced, and said softly, if my story reminds you of your own, don't stay silent. Share it. Comment. Follow Real Her Stories, because silence protects no one.